Got it. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Quaitra Bynum. This is my presentation for EDCO 725 Teaching and Learning. This is my demonstration assignment, Liberty University. So today our focus will be on autism and facial recognition through virtual reality systems. And so as we begin, we're going to just cover a few things in this presentation, and our learning outcomes will be as follows. By the end of the presentation, you'll be able to identify the following. How to compare facial expressions of autistic children versus non-autistic children. You'll also be able to evaluate the benefits of virtual reality systems. And lastly, how to operate the QT robot and improve social interactions of autistic children. All right, so let's just get a working definition of and an understanding of what autism is. Children with autism spectrum disorder often have problems with social, emotional, and communication skills. They also have trouble understanding other people's feelings or expressing their own. And they're very interested in people. However, they do not know how to talk for many of them, play, or relate to them. And so as you can see, for an autistic child, it can be very challenging to be able to communicate with non-autistic individuals. And so we're just going to take a look at some information. We're going to take a look at videos and just get a better understanding of how virtual reality can help autistic children better communicate. So we enter into our first question, and so if I go around the table, if I ask you the following question, just give me one response. What does facial expressions tell us about how a child is feeling? Bernice?
Angry.
Okay.
Happy.
Okay.
Excited.
Okay.
Sad.
And sad. Absolutely. And so that's pretty universal across the board. However, with autistic children, they are unable to make the connection of those feelings, of what they're feeling and how others are feeling, and be able to connect. And so the definition of facial expressions. Someone want to read that for me? Gianna?
Facial expressions convey various types of meanings in various contexts. Facial expressions are typically associated with emotions: happy, sad, angry, disappointed, excited, etc. Facial expressions can be used for communication purposes.
And we all would agree. We all know someone, or maybe even ourselves, where we've used facial expressions to communicate without even saying a word. Being a mother, my children, if I make a certain look or an expression on my face, they know they need to sit down. And so it's very important. It is a part of our everyday living, is just being able to utilize facial expressions. And so at this point, we're going to take a look at a video called The Mismatch of Autistic and Non-Autistic Facial Expressions. And so after this, we'll have some dialogue about the video.
A short video to explain how the differences in autistic and non-autistic facial expressions may lead to less successful social interactions. This is Joe. He is autistic. And this is his friend Mike. He is not autistic. Joe and Mike typically produce different facial expressions because one of them is autistic and the other is not. When Joe feels sad, he makes an expression that looks a bit like this. And when Mike is sad, he typically makes this slightly different expression. Therefore, Joe and Mike's faces may be essentially speaking a different language when it comes to conveying sadness. As a result, when Joe is sad, Mike might struggle to recognise Joe's sadness, and conversely, when Mike is sad, Joe might struggle to recognise Mike's sadness. And this difficulty in reading the facial expression of the other person could lead to less successful social interactions, or even social difficulties. To give an example, imagine that Joe and Mike are both feeling upset about something, and Mike feels like he really needs a hug. Joe asks Mike how he is, and Mike responds saying he's fine, even though he isn't, and then asks Joe how he is. Joe responds that he's fine and then says goodbye. Since Joe and Mike struggle to read each other's expressions, they don't realise that the other person is sad. As a result, they don't support or comfort each other and are left being a little bit let down by the other person. This is just one basic example of how difficulties reading someone's facial expression could lead to responses that are not socially advantageous. In summary, autistic and non-autistic people produce different facial expressions, and so their faces may be essentially speaking a different language, and therefore they may struggle to read each other's expressions, and this could lead to less successful social interactions.
Okay, so if we look at both Mike and Joe, it is apparent that they both feel in the same way, but their facial expressions say something totally different. So we looked at Joe, his face was extremely and then Mike felt like he was being insensitive, but Joe's unable to recognize what Mike is feeling. And so that's what happens with an autistic child. They're unable to make a connection with what you're feeling based off of what they see. And so let's go here. So what did you conclude from the video as it relates to the interpretation of Joe and Mike's facial expressions?
Well, both of their facial expressions, to me, Joe did look like he was upset, and Mike looked like he was just annoyed. So that's my interpretation of what I saw. So Joe could have read Mike's facial expression as something different, and Mike could have read his expression as something different.
Right.
So if you don't really know the person, aside from them having autism or not, you really don't know what they're expressing.
Absolutely, and that's the challenge that autistic children face. Because they are unable to, for some, they're unable to communicate. If you know most, I won't say most, but a lot of autistic children, they rarely make eye contact with other people, and so it makes it very challenging for them to know what you're feeling, or whether or not you want to play with them, or whether or not you're angry with them. And so that's the challenge that they contend with. But hopefully through virtual reality, and as technology continues to advance, it will better help them to recognize different facial expressions so that they can make an attachment to the emotion that goes along with it. So, our learning outcome number 2 will be what is a virtual system and how do we operate a QT robot? So, can someone read that for me?
Virtual reality environments offers benefits to children with ASD mainly due to their ability to stimulate real-world scenarios in a carefully controlled and safe environment. 2, a VR-based facial emotional expression presentation system which incorporated eye tracking and peripheral sociological monitoring was developed to study the fundamental differences in eye gaze and sociological patterns of adolescents with autism while presented with emotional expression stimuli. And 3, the objective of this system is to inform future development of affect-sensitive virtual social interaction tasks for autistic children.
So to sum all that up, a lot of technical words, to sum that up, what virtual reality systems do, again, it creates an environment where the children are able to see different visuals, and through connection with the therapist, they're able to control what they see through the virtual system. Yeah, virtual reality can change the way autistic children communicate in our world, which is really significant for them. And so when we think about when I saw this video, I thought to myself, okay, wow. So they are unable. So this video kind of gives you a broad overview of virtual reality, but the therapist has the ability, you know, through the software to utilize different software packages that is conducive for the individual children. So maybe they were, you know, in this particular video, they were trying to locate, you know, the animals and who made the sounds, but, you know, there's software that can be created that will help them recognize facial cues. And so this is really groundbreaking for therapists and educators and just virtual reality community, the technology community as a whole. For some children, it may help, and for other children, it may not. But the ability to create something that could potentially change their lives is significant. All right, and so then we're going to move on to the QT robot. And we're going to take a look at what this robot is and how do we operate it. So, you know, it's important for the therapist to be very active in the education of their children, right? And so this particular robot is interesting, and we're going to take a look at, before we look at the video, I want someone, can someone read this for me? It just gives you a little outline of what the QT robot is. So can someone read that for me?
A QT robot is an expressive humanoid robot designed and built based on scientific approaches to assist in teaching new skills to children with autism and special educational needs. It is equipped with a camera, microphones, and speakers to interact with humans. It also has an 8-inch LCD screen as a face to show facial expressions and emotion. QT robot uses interactive educational methods such as games, role-playing, and social narratives to teach and practice new skills in a fun and engaging manner. It uses simple simple verbal language to communicate with children. It also combines talking with showing visual stimulus and images in a tablet to make sure children can fully understand the content of the sessions. QT robot can also add emotions and gestures to the sessions to teach social communication and emotional abilities. And the complexity of the verbal and nonverbal interaction is based on the development age of children and is related to the learning objectives of each child.
So as we see, what they're utilizing now is utilizing a toy, if you will, along with virtual reality to do to meet basic needs and basic skills. And so it has the ability to do all those things. What would be one of the challenges for a therapist with this QT robot?
The kids may think it's a toy and just want to play.
Absolutely. What else? Think on a broader scale. Can we afford it?
That would very much for you, unless they make it where it's affordable,
Right.
you know.
Or like you know how they have like insurance purposes, like being if they have a need that could be met under the insurance.
Right, to be covered under insurance. You know, if they find that this is making a difference in the lives of autistic children, they can advocate and help build programs and bills that they or find grants that will help compensate for this robot, and they're very costly. But again, it's an investment into your practice. So, you know, if you have a practice where a large portion of your population is autistic children, that's a good investment. And so you have to be, willing to go outside of what you know to be able to meet the needs of your children.
Hello, my name is QT Robot. Today, we are working emotions. Look at this face. This is a surprised face. When something happens that we did not expect, we feel surprise. Like this. Now, the next emotion. Look at this one. This is an angry face. When someone bothers us, we may feel angry. Like this. When we're angry, we can calm down by taking deep breaths and count to 10. Like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now we feel calm. Bye-bye.
So, what do you think about that? It is table size. Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to get to this. It is table size, right? And it has the ability to add different software
Yes.
to help, communicate. So what do you think, what would be the benefit for a non-autistic child with this robot? Because we're talking about autistic children, right? We understand that their ways of communicating through their facial expressions may not necessarily mean what a non-autistic child would perceive as that emotion. So how would that benefit a non-autistic child? So say I have Billy and I have Sarah and their siblings. Sarah isn't autistic, Billy is. How would that help Sarah better communicate with her brother who's autistic?
She will understand, like you could switch, I don't know, I'm just saying, like, if the robot had like a way to switch it where non-autistic children can see, okay, the robot can be an autistic robot or something, and show like, okay, this is Billy when he is angry, but that doesn't mean that, he's standoffish. That probably just means that something hurt his feelings. Or this is Billy when he's excited, and like kind of switch the faces to like he's excited, but he has like a blank or like a eyebrow raise, and it's just trying to get her to understand like he's excited, but his facial expression may not be coming off as that. And that doesn't mean that you be mean or you just walk away. Like you gotta kind of understand
Right.
where he's coming from and how he feels.
Absolutely. And it's important for non-autistic children to know that, because what that does is the more knowledgeable, and it is a little difficult for younger children, but it is important for them to be able to recognize what an autistic child is feeling through their facial expressions, because what that will do is that will increase and improve their social interactions. Because if Billy has a face that he's angry doesn't necessarily mean he's angry. And so, Sarah may say, well, I don't want to play with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so helping them to understand that although he may have this facial expression, that may not be, he still wants to play with you. Or he could be having this facial expression because you don't want to play with him. And so I think it can work both ways to help, the average child and then the autistic child. All right. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna make some pairs. So Gianna, you'll pair with Bernice, and Latoya, you'll pair with Joanna. And these are 2 questions that we're going to. I want you guys to just jot down some answers, and we're gonna take a few minutes just to go through these questions, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss your responses. Okay. So what are some ways that therapists can collaborate with designers to formulate software specific to autistic children's needs? All right. And then list some ways to test the accuracy of the robot. Okay? So you guys can go ahead and collaborate, and I'll give you a moment, and then we'll get started. And I'll be back in a moment.
So they can always give a scenario, like, something else how does, and try to have them incorporate it in a program.
You know, we have facial expressions. You know, we have the facial expression, but they can, like, learning aspects of when they're talking, they can even teach verbal. No verbal ways where they talk slowly. And he might be able to catch on and he might not. But you can use verbal sometimes.
Okay, so tell them like this is how you brush your teeth and like show them.
Them how to, yeah, examples.
This is how your shoe.
Show sense of social media where, like we can just interact on social media just with ourselves, but maybe
pictures,
they're
you
in
know.
like a therapy session.
Shows
Happy where
pictures.
there's a way where they're be able to still operate with social media. But when they're not
There's a lot of
kids
kids that are not really, like,
because
to
we
me,
need
the
some
son
years
is more
to
into, like a high functioning autistic child. So I said I was gonna talk about my son in my house.
You
had
have to do something and then check it when it's
that's not
done.
functioning.
To make sure that it's accepting what you showed it.
Like when
Or,
he doesn't sign, he doesn't make anything.
Because you don't know if they're accurate yet, you give 1 or 2 out to a family, and have them do it for at least 2 weeks, because everything has to, what's the word? You're testing it to see if it comes out with like,
Any flaws?
yeah, I forgot the term, and I'm not trying to be politically correct right now. But, you test it and you wanna make sure that you're
What you
trying to word.
It's
It's a science word. But you're trying to see that if it comes out accurate, so you test it for 2 weeks. You have to keep a log, or even there's some way that the robot could like program it or like run its own diagnostic.
Yeah, system inside where there be any errors.
And then they could see, and yeah,
You ain't right in there.
I remember.
Okay. All right. All right. So, what are some ways therapists can collaborate with designers to formulate software specific to autistic children's needs? So, who wants to share first?
Yeah.
We were just thinking about, like their ADO, like the things that they do when they get up in the morning, they, they brush their teeth, they wash their body, taking them through steps like that to do that. And, so you also mentioned social media, like how big social media is. And we were just throwing back ideas like, figuring out ways how to get them on a social media page, like maybe with other autistic children, to kind of communicate and, to see how they communicate with each other.
That's good. That's good, and that is another way, that's technology, and I think, any form of technology will be significant for them if it's, if it's a controlled, environment for them, because remembering that, too much information can be overload for them. So, having, I think it was mentioned before, like maybe like an app.
Like a virtual reality would be like a cool, because if they're not distracted, but let's just say if they met a friend or, they're in a class or something together, maybe it'll be set up where it's more of like, I guess it could be like a one-on-one experience if they're, depending on where they are. But then maybe as they grow, they could be more, more comfortable with, or maybe having like a group scenario,
Okay.
depending on where they are,
Right,
there.
right, absolutely. So just creating that environment for the interactions, whether it be a small group, large group, or or the same. All right, Gianna, very good. Thank you, guys.
Which one? You want to do it first?
Yeah.
Okay. So we said that a good way that therapists can collaborate with designers is for like therapists to verbally teach like the children through the reality or the robot with pictures, like showing them like this is how you brush your teeth, and this is how you tie your shoe, and like kind of like a learning objective, so that it's not just like they put on it and then like like the little boy who loved maps and everything, and he's just like picturing going around, like teach him how to get from place to place.
Gotcha.
Or
Okay.
teach
So
him
more
how
of a
to
directive.
like this is how you walk up the street, or you get on an airplane to fly in the sky or something like
Right.
that. To kind of get them to like
The learning.
Focus
focus
and make the
and learn.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And again, just creating a routine
Yeah.
will definitely benefit. So list some ways to test the accuracy of the robot. Because when you talk about technology, there's always flaws in technology, and so what are some ways?
So my partner and I came up with saying like maybe before like the robots become like big to the world, the developers or whoever came up with the robot give it to at least 2 families with autistic children and have them test it for 2 weeks and see the results, because when you give something you want to make sure that it has a
trial.
like a trial and error, see where they have to fix it at or see what they can improve. So maybe the robot is teaching them to do things, and the robot is teaching them about facial expression, but the robot is also running its own diagnostic test within itself to see like, okay, they were good with recognizing and smiling, but they weren't good with recognizing being surprised. So how could we work on them understanding?
Improving the software, right? So that it's more focused on that particular task. That's good. That's good. What do you guys think?
I don't think we got there.
That's okay.
But
That's
Gianna
very
was
good.
okay.
That's okay.
We are going on with
But that's good, because again, there are going to be some flaws with technology. But if we have a goal in mind to, be specific about what it is we're trying to teach the children, I think that's a start. And I think working, therapists giving their input, maybe visiting these seminars where they're advertising or they're showing that they're displaying these and sharing what the children actually need. It's one thing to create something. It's another thing to know what it is that particular group of individuals need. And so making that collaboration of therapists saying, okay, they need to learn basic ADL skills. And so this is what you want to implement into your software would be beneficial to the children. Thank you, guys. All right, so we're going to bring it all in. All right? We're going to bring it all in. So, give me 3 things you learned today. Go.
QT robot,
Mm-hmm.
the virtual reality, like how they're incorporating it, and just the different software.
Okay. That's good. Gianna, 2 things you found interesting.
I did find the new the QT robot very interesting. I also found the what is it called? Florio. I found that interesting as far as like them actually seeing different things, and I thought that the cop interaction was very important. So I thought that was very
That was significant. It will be beneficial for for police as well.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say.
Absolutely,
I think
especially
have something like that.
absolutely. So there are a lot of benefits, I believe, that could help both public public workers as well as, private, therapists and educators and social workers, those who work with the population. I think collaborating, again, I think what's important is the collaboration.
I want to say, even I know, like, of course, the people who went to school for it and stuff like that, they want to know it, but I just think just for everyday civilians, just being able to be aware that everybody is not, some may have autism, some may have other things, but us being aware, and if we see somebody in need, not just like walking past and thinking that, oh, something's wrong with them, but you being able to recognize that, you'll be able to see like, oh, well, maybe they need help, maybe they need assistance, rather than me just walking by because I think like they may be this, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just think even in general, just the overall education of it for civilians in general would just make it, kind of make it easier, because you never know who you'll interact with that may kind of be autistic.
Absolutely. And then we're thinking about a specific population right now, but what happens to those children who, become adults? Or, you have the high functioning autistic children, you have the nonverbal autistic children, so there's a wide spectrum, and so just being able to recognize this overall would definitely be beneficial.
Can I piggyback off of what Toya said? I think that is a really good idea that, for non-autistic children, adults, people, period, I think they should get a glimpse in autistic children's world, because, like you said, I'm not, autistic children are different in their own way. They how they interact with one another, they kind of get each other. But me, let's just say, like, I never had experience with autistic children, and I'm just walking up and then I see them like, freaking out or scared of me, or, having a surprise face, but meaning they're really angry, and I don't even know what to do. So now I panic. I just feel like, not just for police, but I just feel like you said, everyone should be educated and taught virtually, regularly, about how to interact. Because not everyone is high function. There are children who are nonverbal.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, because the spectrum is
so broad. Absolutely.
I
So
just want to say one thing about this QT robot. It shows one expression. Can it show two expressions? Autistic child won't just say, oh. It could be like, it could be a different kind of expression. So you show two.
Of the same expression.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be a part of the therapist working along with the developers, as opposed to just, one basic facial expression, but having various expressions in that same category. So this is, maybe what anger looks like.
Some people frown up. Some do like this, some do different ways.
Absolutely. So that's good.
They need about 2 or 3, I would say.
Yeah, that's good. All right. And so my final thought is the role of technology along with the therapist's experience, because we're looking for your experience with working with these children to will improve the facial recognition and enhance the social interactions of autistic children by utilizing virtual reality. And so it would be beneficial for, us to be very involved in developing laws or programs that will cater to this specific area of development for autistic children. Okay. Any final questions? Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time, and we will talk soon.